Good afternoon again. We're going to go ahead and get started with the program. Please do continue to eat and grab food as you need to. Welcome to the Busta Business Forum 2025, the business of doing good. My name is Demita McDonald, and I have the pleasure of serving as the coordinator of the Women's Leadership Institute of Baltimore here at Notre Dame, as well as the senior director for University Communications and Public Relations. I'm honored to serve as today's MC for this distinguished panel talking about career paths in philanthropy and community engagement. I extend my warmest welcome to each of you, especially those who are visiting the campus for the first time. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And I also want to recognize those who are joining us online. We have several people who are joining us on Zoom this afternoon. So the Women's Leadership Institute of Baltimore, or WLIB for short, was founded to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of outstanding women in the Baltimore region and beyond. Today, I have the pleasure of serving as the coordinator of the Charles J. Busta III Lecture in Business, which has been an endowed lecture series here annually at the university, inspiring women leaders across our campus. As you've already read in the program, Charles Busta, or CB, was the husband of Bonnie Busta, who was a distinguished alum here at the university and a remarkable friend to Notre Dame. As a board member, community leader, and mentor, he was a feminist and an ally. The Busta Lecture was established in his memory to highlight women leaders and educate students at Notre Dame. I'm so very excited for you all to hear from our distinguished panel. But first, it's my pleasure to introduce Bonnie Busta and welcome her to the podium. She received her Master's of Arts in Teaching from Notre Dame in 2004, and she is here to tell us more about the significance of this program and the person behind it. Bonnie.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm Bonnie Busta. 26 years ago, my husband, CB Busta, who was a trustee at the College of Notre Dame at the time, passed away suddenly at the age of 51. Together with his friends, family, and Notre Dame community, we started the series in his memory. Every year, I say a few words to bring a sense of CB to life in advance of the panel, a sketch so that his spirit can be with us all. CB was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, to a family of Czech and Slovak descent. He was raised Catholic, the son of a carpenter, and he worked in the steel mills to put himself through college. In the 70s, he married me. He graduated with a master's in journalism from Northwestern University in Chicago and started working in advertising in New York City. He was good at what he did, in part because he was good at adapting to a rapidly changing world, but also because he could read people very well. He could feel what people wanted and what made them light up. And he cared deeply about integrity. These skills would serve him well as he went not to shape CoverGirl These skills would serve him well as he went to shape CoverGirl Cosmetics here in Baltimore in the 1980s and early 90s, helping to make it a leading mass market cosmetic brand in the country. In turn, CoverGirl would also shape him. He would learn a lot about women and the experiences in society, how their cultural roles were transforming women who increasingly filled professional positions, and the unique challenge they faced in doing so during that time. During this time, CB and I were raising our daughter, Carly, and so the questions about how to support young women in the world felt very urgent to both of us. By the time of CB's death, he had become an executive vice president at Revlon, while also serving on the boards of the Baltimore Museum of Art and the Boy Scouts of America, Baltimore Toolworks, and of course, as a trustee of Notre Dame. We founded and continue this series now in its third decade with the intention of supporting young Baltimore women and men finding possible pathways where professional success, a life in faith, and one's personal family flourishing are not mutually exclusive. I want to thank you. Where's Demita? Thank you, Demita McDonald and the Notre Dame team for organizing this year's forum. And thank you to our accomplished panel members who are seated over there. Valencia Hike, Diana Liz Cabrera, and Natalia Misicelli, as well as our student moderator, Nista. Did I say that correctly? Okay. Kushi Ray. And now I'm going to return this over to Demita without further ado. Thanks again.
Thank you, Bonnie. It is now my esteemed pleasure to introduce you to another student who will actually introduce you to all of the panelists in terms of doing their formal introductions here. Tassilo Lamekul, one of our impressive student leaders, will introduce our featured speakers. Tassilo is a junior at Notre Dame majoring in international business with a minor in economics. He is the captain of the men's soccer team, a student ambassador, and part of the International Student Organization. He's originally from Germany. Last August, Tassilo was one of a group of select students who was able to complete a 2-week Albrecht Fellowship with the World Trade Center Institute in Baltimore. Without further ado, here's Tassilo.
Good afternoon. My name is Tassilo Lemkul, and it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists and moderator. Valencia Hike is the Director of Community Engagement for the Baltimore Orioles, overseeing initiatives that promote youth development, literacy, and health and wellness in the region. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska, she moved to Baltimore with her young children to pursue higher education. She earned a bachelor's degree in corporate communications from the University of Baltimore and continued her graduate studies in contemporary communications at the College of Notre Dame. She has served as a director of operations and interim executive director at Share Baby, as well as community education program manager at Park Heights Renaissance. She holds leadership roles with the Baltimore Road Runners Club, Black Girls Run Baltimore, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and National Pan-Hellenic Council of Metropolitan Baltimore. She serves on the boards of Marian House and Teach for America. Diana Liz Cabrera is a dedicated fundraiser serving as the development manager at Ronald McDonald House, Maryland. She is deeply committed to providing a home away from home for families with critically ill children. She began her fundraising career here at her alma mater, NDMU, where she earned both her undergrad degree in business with minors in economics and French, as well as a master's degree in leadership and management. As a student, she was actively involved as a student ambassador and Bonner leader, while serving as a graduate assistant for the Office of Campus Ministry and Service. Natalia Misicelli received her BA in International Studies from NDMU in 1994 and worked for Notre Dame admissions after graduation. In 2007, she joined the development team for Catholic Charities of Baltimore, where she began as a director of special events and currently is the director of strategic partnerships. In addition to overseeing all major events, she has managed the agency's steward program and corporate, individual and planning giving. She is a recipient of NDMU's 2022 Service to Society Award, and she serves as a board member of the Baltimore Dragon Boat Club. She's a former board member of the Association for Fundraising Professionals Maryland and Board of Trustees member for the Catholic High School of Baltimore. Nishta Kushire is a senior biology major on the pre-medicine track with a chemistry minor. She's a resident advisor, peer advocates for change and transformation educator, NDMU Bonner Board of Trustees Institutional Advancement Committee representative, senior class president, and Tri Beta Honor Society publicity chair. Now join me in giving a warm Notre Dame welcome to our speakers, as I will turn the program over to Nishta.
This is definitely a full circle moment. My freshman year, I was one of the introducers for the panel speakers. So can we just give a round of applause for Tassilo? He did an amazing job. Welcome and good afternoon. So as we heard from your bios, each of you studied here as students. So what brought you to Notre Dame initially, and how does it feel coming back to campus with all these new changes?
Sure, I'll go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Diana. I want to say first that it is such an honor to be here. I'm so grateful. I'm a double alum of the university, and this is a full circle moment as well for me. I used to come to this lecture every year as a student, so very humbled to be here. And what drew me to Notre Dame, I was drawn to Notre Dame at a very, very young age. So I actually was part of an after-school tutoring program called Food for Thought, and we used to come on field trips here. So since I was in kindergarten until probably around 10 or 11 years old, I came every year for a fun trick-or-treating field trip on campus to dorm rooms, and I always felt a sense of belonging and purpose. So whenever I envisioned myself from that young age in going to college, I always thought it was Notre Dame or nowhere for me. And then luckily, I was able to come back and experience awesome experiences just throughout that time too with the after school program. Later, as I was older, I was able to help other students here too. And my transition in high school from the Institute of Notre Dame, which has very similar values to Notre Dame. And I was just so grateful to be in a community that's transforming leaders, educating leaders to transform the world. It's so impactful to me. The sense of inclusivity, community that you feel on campus and then throughout your life is really amazing. So.
I feel a little old, but I'm very grateful and honored to be here today. To be honest, Notre Dame was not my first choice going through the admissions process many moons ago. It was an institution not too far away from this one that was my first choice. But during the admissions process, my senior year at the Catholic High School of Baltimore, Notre Dame and the admissions team in particular just treated me like a person and not a number. And I just felt like it was a great fit for me. And I just felt like this is where I belonged. I'm a first generation Italian American, and my father's biggest wish in life was to have me be the first person in our entire family to graduate from college. So that was a big goal for me. And I knew that Notre Dame was the absolute best place for me to be. And that was where I could, reach my highest potential.
It is also. And you were worried about your tech issues. Gave me the mic. I am also honored and grateful to be here. And what drew me to the college and the campus was the community. I really decided that I needed to find the place that fit where I wanted to be. When I finished my undergraduate degree, I was the first person in my family to go to grad school. And so it was important to me to be somewhere that provided a sense of family. Since I left Nebraska, I didn't have family here. I came here and I only had my sister. So I wanted to find a sense of family, but I also wanted to get an education that would provide me something beyond my undergraduate degree. And that's what I thought that I was going to find here and that I did eventually find here.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I can definitely say that in this past 4 years that I've been here, the community has definitely gotten a lot stronger. The values here at Notre Dame are definitely immortal. So thank you for sharing that. All right. You three are very accomplished individuals in your field of studies, and I'm sure we all would like to hear the story of how you got to your current job.
I guess my mic is working. I can go. All working great. So I'm going to make this as brief as I possibly can because I'm known to be a chatter. I had my mother in the final years of her life dealt with Alzheimer's and dementia. And there came a point when I had to stop working. I was living out of state, and I took a pause to take care of her as we were, as a family, we were transitioning her to home care. And so that took all of us as a team to come together and to make that happen. And I'd been, out of the workforce for about a year and a half. And one of my friends who, I'm going to give her a shout out to Amy Mudd Carlo, class of 1992, also a colleague here at the admissions office, was working at Catholic Charities at the time and was in the process of adopting her first child. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at that point with my life. I was a little stuck, if you will. And half joking, but half serious, Amy was like, "Why don't you apply for my job?" And I thought to myself, this is, maybe my chance to come back home. I was living out of state, and it was with Catholic Charities. I've known Catholic Charities since I was a freshman here at Notre Dame. Notre Dame always had a strong community service organization, and part of the orientation process then for our students was to take them to various organizations to actually learn about the opportunities to volunteer and fundraise throughout the community, learn about what social services and human services are available. So I've been volunteering with the organization for forever. So on a lark, just to make my family happy, who didn't think I was doing anything at that point, I applied for the job, and somehow I got it. And I, fell in love with the place, and I've been there ever since.
In short, I see it as meant to be, but I will go way back, not way back, 5 years ago when I graduated with my master's. I started my career in finance and investing, and it was something that I loved in school, and I still love the topics of it. But I want to just highlight that sometimes when you work in an environment, it is very different. And so I realized that was not for me. And I think that's important to be honest to yourself as your first job out of college, that sometimes it's, even though you might think it's your dream job and place, it might not be. So I think it's important to be true to yourself, and realize that and take a leap of faith and then see what else might be out there. And that's what I did. So I took a giant leap of faith, and I left that career without a backup plan. But luckily, Notre Dame opened its door to me again. And so I applied to a position in alumni engagement, actually. And the person at the time who was interviewing me told me about the position in development and annual giving, something I had never given a thought to. And I said, why not? So I applied and I received the position, and I completely fell in love with the position. I had a great mentor. Her name was Margie here. And so she really showed me the love and appreciation for building those relationships with donors and the love that you can have for philanthropy. And it felt like a perfect fit for me because it mixed finance, but also giving back in a creative way. So that was what I was missing, more of that fulfillment in my career. And I was happy to achieve that when I landed in development. And so I was here at Notre Dame for about 2 years, and I wanted to do more in the Baltimore community. And so, which is where I'm from, but I was looking at volunteer opportunities, and I landed on the Ronald McDonald House page, and I never knew about the Ronald McDonald House before, if I'm being completely honest. So it was just a very big eye-opening experience to see the mission, something that was so near and dear to my heart. My family is from Dominican Republic, and we send stuffed animals to children in clinics there who are in underserved populations. We've been doing that for many years. And so when I saw the mission of helping families who provide a home away from home for families with seriously ill or injured children and bringing that sense of normalcy and joy back to them, it was something that I was particularly very drawn to. I saw the position listed on the website in January, I remember, of 2023. And then I didn't really do much with the position because I was very content here. But I remember coming back 2 months later to the website because I hadn't volunteered or done anything yet. And then I said, oh, the position is still there. And it like moved my heart. It really did. I said, I have to apply. And so I did. And I'm so grateful. I remember to this day when Emily is here, when Emily called me and said it was a Monday. I remember I was like, this is the best Monday ever. So it really was. And I'm so grateful 2.5 years later to be at the Ronald McDonald House and be able to do something so meaningful.
All right. I've always spent my whole entire career in community. I started with AmeriCorps and moved on to various different jobs. I never pictured myself in baseball. I kind of fell into it. And one thing that I've learned throughout my career is that I've always been determined and had a plan, but God always has another plan for me, and I just got to go with it and accept it. And so the story goes, I was working at a nonprofit and I was managing about 73 different nonprofits in Baltimore. I started out managing programming and doing operations and was interim ED for a while. And I was doing an event with the Baltimore Orioles, and I met this woman who I'm going to do some shout outs also, Sydney, who's here. And we did this activation together, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. I met the EVP there. He called me over. He asked me some questions about some initiatives that they were going to have. I talked to him and I thought nothing else of it. So the activation was between the players and the coaches. So I went back to my regular job and I get this email and it says, would you be interested? Or I got a call and they asked me if I would be interested in a position that they had at the team. I had no idea the position was out there. They had been interviewing. They couldn't find a person. And so someone said, do you remember that woman, Valencia? And as the story goes, my EVP loves to say, and he hits the table and he says, yes, that's the one. But something that's even more important to me than how exciting was it when I got this call from the Baltimore Orioles that they want me, right? I didn't apply, but it was super exciting. But my first question was, what's the climate and culture like? Because where I was, I really enjoyed my job. I enjoyed what I did for the community and I enjoyed the staff that I was privileged to work with. So I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of insight of what that culture looked like, and said, you know what, let's take this leap. Again, listening to God and praying on it and deciding, is this going to be my path? And at this point, I could not see myself doing anything different. I love what I do. I think that I am good at what I do because I started out in a position where I was boots on the ground and really understanding community and listening to the voices who don't always get heard. I'm in a position where I have a platform to allow those voices to be heard and to provide funding and support. And that means a great deal to me. And with the trajectory of my career, I think right now for me, the most important role that I have is stewarding the next leader and understanding that where I started at and where I am, I can only continue but for so long. And there is someone that will come and have amazing ideas and maybe even do it better than what I did. And so now creating space for that next leader.
So you three kind of touched up on this, but if you had to choose one thing that makes you the most excited about what you do today, what would that be?
I can't choose one thing. um, what I love most about Catholic Charities is the fact that, we've always been, we're the largest private provider of human services in the state of Maryland. And we've always been a very innovative organization. And, I was born and raised here. I love this town. And I love the fact that, even though my job is to, fundraise for that amount that, our public funding from federal and state funds that come to us, that we bridge that gap. I love seeing the impact that my frontline colleagues make each and every day. The city has big problems, but I think we as an organization do a wonderful job of making a difference and improving lives of individuals from birth to death. With whatever services through any of our front doors who come in, we meet people where they are, and that makes me excited. That fuels me on days when I'm personally not at my best. It's, when I manage one of our events and I'm privileged to work with one of the guests that we've served and I'm able to hear their success stories, that just fuels me to keep going. And it's the love and compassion that I feel. I think there's a lot of goodwill in this town. I don't think we talk about that enough. And that's something that just, warms my heart and keeps me going. And it's the success stories. It's the fact that we make impact and that, when we bring together a community, you can move mountains. So that charges me up.
I mean, yeah, very similar. I would say being at the house for me, specifically being able to see the impact that we have every day on our families. So we serve 55 families each night. And just being able to interact and see the families, see them grow. We have families who come from all over the world because of the great medical care that we have in Baltimore. And so being able to see how they've grown, we have a lot of repeat families who come for treatment for their kids. And so being able to see that development, and then hopefully when they ring the good news bell at our house, it's always such a joyous moment. We have a bell at the house that they can ring when they're experiencing a moment of joy or get to go home finally after being with us either for one night or anywhere up to 2 years. And so we all come out and celebrate with them. And I think just visually seeing and hearing the impact that you make every single day, having our offices located right in the house where we serve the families that we do, there's nothing like it to be able to see that every day and know that you're truly making, even if you're like a mustard seed in this ripple effect of their journey and their life, that together we can come together and provide a healing experience and joy and sense of normalcy in their lives in such difficult moments.
I also do not think that I have one thing in particular that is that one thing. I would have to say that I am very mission driven and that I love community and I love people, and that I didn't choose this work, it chose me. And so having the privilege, and I have to remind myself and my team that we are in a position that we work for a team where things that are very normal for us are not normal for other people, and that the work that we do transcends. And so I really love that I have the opportunity to touch people's lives in so many different ways, whether it's through the work that my team does, whether that's through the players, whether that's through the coaches. There's so many different entities that I touch within the baseball realm. Even outside of baseball, we just recently did something in the basketball realm with an NBA player, and still are continuing to touch children. So I love the opportunity to be able to partner with so many stakeholders and individuals to continue my vision and mission.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, what advice would you give to either a college student or an early career professional about preparing yourself for a career in either philanthropy or community engagement?
Oh. Step in here. The advice that I would give, and that I gave to my team when I first joined the team, they asked if one thing that I would leave my team with, and I continue to lead with this, is never be afraid to fail. When you're afraid to fail, you hinder yourself. And so there will be times where you will make a decision. And at that time, you're making the decision with the information that you have, the resources that you have, and it's not going to reflect what's going to happen down the line. So you have to be willing and open to opportunities to see where they go and what you can do with them instead of putting yourself in a box. And so I will always lead with never be afraid to fail and to chase your dreams. I don't think I would be in the position that I'm in today if I didn't give myself a chance and look at the opportunities that were out there for me.
I would say really just trust the timing and the path of your life. Just be true to yourself and what's the next step that's going to look like. And also, if you want a career specific in philanthropy and community engagement, I would say that it's something that a lot of people fall into, and not necessarily a lot of people just have the dream of doing that before, just because of, I guess, lack of awareness of such a great career that it can be in all the different realms associated with the career. So just make yourself aware of all the aspects in philanthropy and community engagement. I would say that it's a career for people who are really passionate for the mission that they are serving. There's going to be long nights. There's going to be a lot of conversations. There's lack of resources sometimes, and time and capacity. And everyone's wearing multiple different hats. So just be ready to, fill all those roles and excited for what you're doing. Because if you don't have that excitement and passion, then it's going to be really hard for you to keep going through the process and journey of the position that you're in. And also, I would build and say that relationship building is really important. So if you are a good listener, if you like to network, if you like to talk to people, if you can make connections really easily, I think that's fundamental for philanthropy and community engagement, is just being someone who's always there and remembers important details, both for donors and also for the population that you're serving. Because you need to know who you're serving, and then you also need to know how you can communicate that to the donors who are making the difference for your mission and community.
Thanks for stealing my answer. I think in life, finding your passion is important. I think passion and love for what you do get you through the hard days, because this is hard work. It involves a lot of sacrifice, but I think the reward outweighs the sacrifice. And I can't express enough how important relationship building is, both from a personal level and a professional level. Depending on what you decide to do, what actual role you take in a nonprofit world, in a philanthropic world, whether it's, direct services or whether you're a fundraiser, establishing rapport with individuals is what makes you successful and ultimately makes the organization successful. Relationship building involves a lot of time, building of trust, communication skills, and just having that one-on-one feeling with someone. And I find that in all of my experiences with Catholic Charities, part of my job, whether it's, directly or indirectly, it's about bringing champions to our table. You want individuals from every walk of life, whether they're a volunteer coming through your door. We have, 4,000 volunteers across the agency, 10,000 donors. Each and every one of them brings something to the table. And each one of their gifts is a gift that we will find a use for, because we have needs for everything. So relationships, I cannot, express that enough. Part of the reason why I'm with Catholic Charities isn't only because of my friends, but I loved my student activities life here at Catholic Charities. My dean of students at that time was the most recently the retired chief administrative officer of Catholic Charities. She's been, shout out to Marianne O'Donnell. She's been a lifelong friend and a mentor, and that's important as well. So building those relationships that can last you a lifetime is key, because this is small to more. Everybody knows everybody in this town. And you'd be surprised when I could be talking to, someone across the other side of the room and find a connection that would help us in some way as an agency. So just remember that each and every interaction you have on a daily basis is important. And it's up to you to make the most of those. So never underestimate each and every one of those, is what I say.
Thank you. I love that. Small to more.
It's
Start
small
using
more.
that now.
Absolutely. Get Kevin Bacon and 6 degrees of separation. It should be 1 or 2 in this town.
So when you think about the successes in your career, what are you the most proud of? I got them there.
Well, this was hard for me because there's, I've been blessed. There's been many, because I've had the opportunity to work with leaders in my organization who have helped me grow and expand my gifts and my abilities and challenge me to do different roles within the development office. So if I had to pick, I thought of 2, so I can never pick one. It's the Libra in me. The first one, Notre Dame. Some of you who've been here for a long time, was a participant in our biannual dragon boat race, which is our largest race. And what's a dragon boat, you say? Well, it's a 41-foot long canoe, 20 people paddle, you got a drummer and a steerer. But it is our largest fundraising event for the agency. And my first race was in 2008. I started in the agency in December 2007. And, it's a huge event. In the beginning, we would have about, 30 teams. That's about 750 people who practice 1 night a week for 8 weeks. So you're managing 4 nights of events. And anywhere from 10 to 15,000 visitors come to Inner Harbor at that point to see it. And it was my proudest moment because it was my first big event for the agency. But it also, I made so many friends and so many connections that have stayed with me through my career at Catholic Charities. But it just gave me such a warm sense, because you have all these people coming together and building community. The event is so unique because it's not a one-day event. It is people who volunteer and fundraise and practice for an event for 3 months. So they're donating thousands of hours of their time and their talent. And I'm big on community. And it's just amazing what people who come together can accomplish. So that, and Our capital campaign, our recent Greater Promise campaign, we just surpassed our initial goal, and I was a privilege to be part of that fundraising effort, which is leading to the next chapter of Catholic Charities. We celebrate our centennial in 2023, so that was probably the second thing, because it's the step to the future, because the need is here and it's just a new dawn for us. So that's very very close and dear to my heart.
Another tough question. There's so many. I would say it's all the small moments, or um, the intangible moments. For me specifically, examples at the house is when I think it's success is when you're able to use the skills and talents that you have in order to provide either a better day or experience for someone. And so when I look at success, I think of the times that I speak Spanish. And so I see it as when I've been able to help families who come from other states or countries who speak Spanish, make them feel more at home at the Ronald McDonald House by translating or just providing another sense of normalcy to their aspect. Primarily at our gala last year, we had a family who was our featured family. They were from the country of Colombia, and I was able to share words. They had written words that they shared to all of the room full of donors and guests who were there. And so I was able to be there and share their words in English that they wanted to convey of gratitude. So that was a very heartwarming, empathetic moment for me to know the family that had stayed for us for over 200 years, 200 days, and then to be able to share their experience to others and see their reactions and how we had impacted them. So for me, it's just those small moments when we're able to see the families interacting in the house, with building community with other families from other places that probably wouldn't normally happen in a day-to-day basis. So it's just all those beautiful small moments that that motivate you every day to continue.
I would have to agree with the relationships. I feel like some of the biggest successes for me were when I realized the impact that I can have and how bigger that impact is when you are joining forces with other people. When you talk about relationships and all of the relationships that I've built from coming from the nonprofit sector to being in corporate, and just seeing that trajectory and how all of those moments, like you mentioned, come together in this Smaltimore moment. And then when you're all in a room and you're talking about the impact, even when we walked in this morning, we had never met, but we have already exchanged information and talking about what the next steps are and how we can then work together. My team just recently visited the house and did a volunteer activation. And so, as you can see, I've already had in some capacity touch points with the two people sitting next to me on the stage, these two amazing women. And so I think when you continue to do that, when I look and I see people in the room that I know and there's a connection, for me, that's a success, because that means that I am continuing to follow my dreams. I'm continuing to be mission bound, and I am holding myself accountable to the things that I said that I would do. And that's a success for me.
Thank you so much for sharing. And now we're going to go to the opposite side. What are some of the most important lessons you learned about overcoming challenges?
I think for me personally is just never wavering in my belief that I can achieve something. That is important, that I believe that I can. I've always believed that I'm a good problem solver, and I think that's helped me a lot in my everyday life. Challenges arise all the time, and it depending on what task you're doing. I credit Notre Dame and the experience I had, particularly outside of the classroom, for giving me the belief that, as we talk about as Notre Dame alums and as current students, that we can transform the world. And I think it's that unwavering belief that helps me get through the challenges, because the challenges are different on a daily basis. If I can give an example, one of my personal challenges, I'm 100% Italian. I do take things personally. So sometimes it's hard when you're, asking someone and having a very personal conversation about finances and about ready to ask someone for some money and you get a no. Yeah, I've learned not to take that personally because in most occasions people will explain why. It's always a no, and this is why. But when I first started doing that, it was hard for me. I felt like, well, gee, what the hell did I do wrong? Like, why did I get a no? So that's probably one example. But I think, just believing in yourself and then just moving forward and believing that you can achieve something is very important. So get rid of the self-doubt is something I would encourage.
I would say as much as you don't want challenges in life, they're always present. So just accepting the fact that it's not failure and it's not the wrong time. It's just a reality of what's happening. But then accepting when that challenge comes, I think it's when I've looked back at situations where I said I could have done a better job at handling this project or this task. It's always almost been making yourself more vulnerable and communicating whether you need help, and then having the confidence to do that too. So a lot of the times, we're tasked with a lot of different projects and deadlines, and it's a very cyclical cycle sometimes for philanthropy. So it's a lot of things are due at a certain time, and just realizing that sometimes you can't take on too much. Realizing what your capacity is, and then being vulnerable enough to communicate that with your team, and then learn from your lessons, and how we can move forward from that. But always learning from what you do, because it's inevitable. There are always going to be challenges.
Me, I would say imposter syndrome. There were times that I didn't believe in myself the way others, and I didn't see myself the way others saw me. So I think perception is key, and understanding that your mistakes or obstacles or challenges that you face are just opportunities for you to use them as a catalyst for what's next. Change is inevitable. I tell my team that all the time. If COVID taught us nothing else, it's how to pivot. And so just believing in yourself and then having a great support system. Part of what we do in community is we provide support and resources. And so knowing who your support and who your resources are, I think when you are in those moments, help you see them through.
So, with all the unmet needs in our community, how do you find ways to stay encouraged and find meaning in your work?
When I saw this question, I thought about some of the messaging that we had for our Greater Promise campaign. And we had 3 questions that we posed to our supporters. And it was, how can I love more? How can I help more? How can I give more? And that's something that I personally ask myself, every day. And for me, it's important for me to support my organization as a donor and as a volunteer as well. So I like to walk the walk if I'm going to talk the talk. And that's really important to me. And I think that I live that, and I follow through on those 3 questions each and every day. Nothing is too small. Everything counts and everything matters. And I give that weight as well. Whether, I see someone who's volunteering just bringing 1 casserole that can feed, 10 people, or, I'm meeting with a donor who can, God bless, give substantial amount of monies. Every little bit counts because, we're helping our neighbors in need. So nothing is too small. So I just try and challenge myself each and every day and keep those 3 questions in mind with each interaction and how I approach my tasks and just how I live my life, period, for the things that are passionate to me. And that's just my general approach and my philosophy and how I live.
There's so many things that could still be done, but I think as humans, we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we do every single day. The ripple effect that we're causing throughout our communities and just the greater good. We were talking that a lot of things, there's so much that happens in Baltimore that isn't highlighted, so many wonderful nonprofits. And so what keeps me motivated is just knowing that, like I mentioned before, a small seed and such a big ripple effect that's causing impact for families, not just today, but for the rest of their lives, and knowing the tangible of how many families we impact every single day, and then getting to see them, and just knowing that something that I did today could help them in the future is just amazing. And that's what keeps you going. You have to look at all the small victories and small wins, because if you think about how many other folks could we serve and all that, that's great. And that's a goal that you should always strive for. But you have to look at what you're doing now, have done throughout your year and throughout your career, and how that's impacted a lot of folks, and what you've done is meaningful. So never underestimate what you're doing, because you're a part of something bigger than what you think you are.
There are two things that I always keep in mind, and I've always told myself from the beginning of when I started this community work. And one of them is very cliche. It's like a marathon. I'm a runner, so I understand what it takes to have to run a marathon. I've done an ultra, which is 50 miles, and people always look at me like I'm crazy. Like, how could you do that? You get to know yourself pretty well when you run 50 miles. It's my time to be with God and to understand who I am and my purpose. And so I really look at this work as there will be times where it's 2 steps forward, but 10 back, and understanding how to push through. Another analogy I will use is it's not like an acceleration on a car, right? Where you push it and it just goes. It's kind of like a gas gauge. You got to fill it up, and sometimes it goes down, but it doesn't go down fast, it's slow. And so understanding my impact, one of the other things that is very impactful in my life and that I never forget is the lighthouse effect, and understanding that every time I show up in a room or if I meet someone, there is a piece of me and a piece of someone else that we take with one another. And it's what I do with that moment and how I transcend my space with someone else is going to carry on. So the work that I'm doing, even today, sitting here with these women and at work, I'm passing that on in hopes that other people are continuing to do this work, and understanding it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so there will be times where I am tested, and I just have to hold steady. And so just keeping that in mind.
I'm just going to stop the conversation here just for a moment to see if there are any questions from the audience before we continue. I'm going to ask you to speak on the mic here just for recording purposes.
Hi, ladies. I'm so happy to speak to you today. I am loving everything you're saying, and I'm leaving this room feeling energized. So I'm Chelsea. I'm Nurse Chelsea. I'm your campus nurse, y'all. And outside of this, I'm also a CEO of a wellness brand. So I do wellness programming in Baltimore City. So my question is, as a small business, how do I develop relationship with corporate partners?
When I meet people, try and understand what their passion is. You know, when you have a discovery meeting of some kind, you're trying to understand for an organization or like an individual what their passions are. Sometimes on a foundation's website, it's pretty, black and white. You can actually read it. So it's learning about what they're passionate about. We at Catholic Charities, offer 80 plus programs, and there's something for everyone pretty much because of the services that we offer. So I try and match ourselves first and foremost for someone who's interested in something that we're doing. So if it's workforce development, if it's helping children and families, if it's helping people get into stable housing, I try and find that out, meet that individual and start the engagement process, connect them with, our program people who are experts who can speak to it better than I can. And then, plot a course, there forward and a plan to grow that relationship with a goal in mind of, what I want that relationship to yield and how I want it to continue and grow and how to, to engage more people in the organization. So it's different for each and every organization. It's not a one size fits all, but for me personally, it's about doing research, doing homework, and seeing who's out there who can, be a support to us. I personally do not, some people in my field, when they work with corporations or foundations in particular, believe that some of those donations are just transactional. I don't. I believe now more than ever that most of these organizations and these companies and corporations, they want to make sure that their money is being used correctly. So it's a, investment in a trusting organization. So it's about finding out about all of that. So you've got to do a lot of homework first and foremost, and then find out how you can make the connection.
I would quickly add, just like you did right now, just to build awareness of your who you like, what you are and what you're trying to do. It is small to more, like we said. So building those connections and awareness of what your mission is. You never know who's going to be in a room. So furthering those connections and remembering who you met and establishing those connections, whether they be small, transactional, pleasantries or here and there, but just always furthering building that relationship until you never know when something bigger can happen from that. So never thinking that something small can come, like a small thing that you did or interacted with someone might not lead in the future to they might remember you and say a year or two later, that was a great, I met this great person and they told me about this great mission or organization and now I can fund them or now I can be a partner with them. You never know when the timing will come.
Add is think outside of the box. A lot of organizations come to me and they may not always align with my pillars and what our mission and vision is. But when you think outside of the box, there are small things that we can do to collaborate together. So while I agree with everything that these ladies are saying, don't sell yourself short. Understanding that you do wellness, but how can that transcend to other opportunities? And then the other thing I would say is storytelling is very important. We are in a world where things are so short. Words, people aren't really paying attention to words anymore. They want a quick spew. And so if you can hone in on the storytelling of the how, the what, and get that out, I think that's what people really resonate. It goes back to something that's not transactional. It's something that you feel and you're compelled. And that's what's really going to transcend those relationships with corporations.
Thank you so much. Great work, y'all.
Awesome. We have time for one more question from the audience. All right. If not, we can transition to our last question here with our panel.
Thank you. All right, for our last question, if you could leave the audience today with one final piece of advice, what would that be?
Well, I couldn't do just, again, I can't just do one. You know, always believe in yourself and never diminish, your God-given potential would be one. And then just the importance of relationships and relationship building. It, it I don't it's a lost art, I think, for some people. I think it's undervalued in our society. So those would be the two things that I would like to leave you with.
Very similar, but a little different. I would say just to fully trust the timing of your life, and where you're meant to be, and then having the confidence and ability to know that your skills and talents can be used somewhere else, and then getting to that place. And then I would also add to not compare yourself or your timeline to other people. Everyone's timeline is so different, and we have to celebrate each other's victories because that's how we all win. So don't get, frustrated if someone you think is in a better position than you are at your age, or something's other is happening gratefully that you would want to be a part of. You might get there, you might not. Everyone's path is very different, but that's how we all, come together in this beautiful world. So trust the timing of your life and then don't compare yourself to others and your timeline because everyone's timeline is very special and unique.
I recently, last week, had an exercise where I've been with this cohort for 9 months, and we had to sit in a circle and tell one another positive things that we're grateful for, but also that we see in them. And the unanimous thing that all of my cohort mates said about me, and it's something that I lead in. And one person in particular, she's a doctor at Johns Hopkins and runs a department. And what she offered was that I taught her was that titles don't matter and that my passion shines through and she sees me as my passion and not my title. And so what I will leave you with is when I started this work till now, it's always been about the passion and what I wanted to do and what I felt strongly about. And so I think that you really need to hone in and decide what it is you care most about and follow that. It will never steer you wrong. It will not change from this moment to when you're 30, 40, 50 years down the line. as a young person, who you are today is not who you're going to be in a year from now. It's not who you're going to be in 5 years, even 10 years. But knowing what you stand for and what you're passionate about will never change and will always guide you and help you make the decisions that will lead your career.
Thank you so much. Could we please have a loud round of applause for our panelists? Thank you so much for giving your time today.